Dubai, December 21, 2015. A lone Range Rover races through the Arabian desert at 3:17 a.m. Inside, Los Angeles artist Chloe Harper makes her final call while clutching evidence that would shatter Dubai's elite. The truth is hidden in plain sight, she whispers to her ex-boyfriend Liam before the line goes dead. Hours later, Dubai police would find not just her body, but a trail of encrypted files and blood-splattered paintings that exposed how a 6-month affair with Sheikh Nasser Al-Malik had spiraled into a web of blackmail, betrayal, and murder worth billions of dollars to keep buried. 6 months earlier, in the sweltering June of 2015, when a chance meeting at a Beverly Hills art gallery changed everything. Chloe Harper stood before a blank canvas in her cramped Los Angeles studio apartment, early morning light filtering through industrial windows stained with years of city grime. At 26, she had already mastered the art of stretching her last dollars. Instant coffee in a chipped mug, paintbrushes washed too many times, canvas bought in bulk during sales. The apartment, a converted warehouse space in the arts district, cost most of her earnings from her job as a gallery assistant. But its northern exposure made the struggle worth it. Artists would kill for this light. The half-finished paintings surrounding her told stories of ambition and frustration. Bold strokes of color depicting cityscapes that morphed into abstract dreams, each one a piece of her soul she couldn't quite sell. Her latest series explored themes of wealth and power, inspired by magazine photos of Dubai's skyline. The irony of painting a city she'd never seen wasn't lost on her, but something about those gleaming towers rising from the desert called to her deepest desires. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Liam. Just checking if you're coming to the gallery opening tonight. Miss you. She left it unread, like the others. Their breakup 3 months ago still felt raw, too tangled with her artistic frustrations to process. Liam had been practical, loving, supportive, everything a struggling artist should want. But his suggestion that she consider teaching art instead of chasing impossible dreams had triggered something in her. She didn't want stable. She wanted extraordinary. Sarah Chen, owner of the Martinez Gallery, had first spotted Chloe's talent at a small group show in Echo Park. Raw emotion on canvas, she'd called it, offering her the assistant position on the spot. What Sarah recognized wasn't just talent, but hunger, a desperate need to be seen, to matter. That same hunger would later catch Sheikh Nasser Al-Malik's eye, though nobody could have predicted how fatally their ambitions would intertwine. The Beverly Hills gallery opening that would change everything almost didn't happen. Chloe's boss had called in sick, asking her to handle the evening's prestigious client list. She'd spent hours selecting the perfect outfit, a black vintage Chanel dress from a consignment shop, paired with her one investment piece, Christian Louboutin heels bought with her first commission. Standing in the gallery's harsh lights, she felt both powerful and exposed, like one of her own canvases. Sheikh Nasser Al-Malik arrived precisely at 9, his presence transforming the already luxurious gallery into something more exotic. At 45, he cut an imposing figure, tall and distinguished, silver threading through his dark beard, his bespoke suit speaking of old money and older power. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, but his eyes kept returning to the corner where Chloe's painting hung, a swirl of gold and crimson that seemed to capture Dubai's desert sunset. When he approached her, the gallery's ambient noise seemed to fade away. "You've never been to Dubai," he said. It wasn't a question. Yet you've captured its soul. His English carried just a hint of an accent, adding to his mystique. For the next hour, they discussed art, light, and the way certain cities capture dreams. He asked about her influences, her techniques, her vision. Nobody had ever listened to her talk about art with such intensity. What Chloe didn't notice was Liam watching from across the room. He'd come to try to patch things up, bringing her favorite coffee and an apology for underestimating her dreams. Instead, he watched her blossom under Sheikh Nasser's attention, recognizing in her eyes the same fire he'd first fallen in love with, but now directed at someone else. When Sheikh Nasser purchased her painting for $30,000, 10 times her asking price, Liam slipped away unnoticed, leaving the coffee to grow cold. The following weeks blurred into a whirlwind of luxury that swept through Chloe's carefully constructed world. Handwritten invitations arrived daily, delivered by the Sheikh's private driver, dinners at exclusive restaurants, private viewings at prestigious galleries, helicopter rides along the coast. Each encounter was perfectly choreographed to feel destined rather than designed. A prestigious Dubai gallery expressed sudden interest in her work, unaware that their major patron had orchestrated the opportunity. Liam tried to warn her through increasingly desperate phone calls and texts. He's married, Chloe. 3 wives already. This isn't just about art. Her responses grew shorter, more defensive. You don't understand. He sees my potential. This is my chance. Liam's final plea, there's always a price with men like him, met with chilling confidence. Maybe I'm willing to pay it. The romance, when it bloomed, felt inevitable. Sheikh Nasser arrived at her studio one evening with an extravagant gift, a year's supply of the finest art materials from Paris. Watching him move through her space, examining her work with genuine appreciation, Chloe felt her last defenses crumble. Their first encounter tasted of expensive cologne and promises. Her paint-stained hands left marks on his bespoke suit that his staff would later struggle to explain to his wives. As June melted into July, Chloe's world transformed. Designer clothes appeared in her studio, each gift accompanied by thoughtful notes about her talent. Her work began to change too. Her colors grew richer, her subjects more ambitious. She started a new series, massive canvases exploring themes of transformation and desire. Sheikh Nasser's influence opened doors she hadn't known existed, introducing her to collectors and curators who suddenly found her work fascinating. Sarah Chen watched her young protégé's transformation with growing concern. Success in the art world usually takes time, she cautioned one afternoon. When it comes too fast, there's often something hidden in the shadows. Chloe dismissed her concerns with a laugh, but Sarah noticed how her hands trembled slightly when Sheikh Nasser's name was mentioned. The offer came on a warm August evening in her studio. Sheikh Nasser stood before her latest work, a massive canvas depicting a woman dissolving into golden light. Your talent deserves a bigger stage, he said, his fingers tracing the edges of the painting. Dubai's art scene is exploding. With the right patron, you could be at its center. The offer was everything she'd dreamed of. A solo exhibition at Dubai's most prestigious gallery, a luxury apartment in the Burj Khalifa, and a monthly stipend that made her gallery salary look like pocket change. All she had to do was move to Dubai. On her last night in Los Angeles, Chloe agreed to meet Liam at their old favorite coffee shop. The conversation was tense, heavy with unspoken warnings and regrets. This isn't about us anymore, she told him. This is about my art, my future. Liam reached for her hands across the table, but she pulled away. Some risks are worth taking. As her departure date approached, Chloe's small studio was systematically dismantled. Sheikh Nasser's staff handled everything, efficient shadows making her world disappear piece by piece. Her paintings, the ones that would later become evidence, were carefully crated for shipment to Dubai. Each box was meticulously labeled, though no one could have guessed that these same labels would later help investigators piece together her final days. On her last morning in Los Angeles, Chloe stood at her empty studio window, the city spread before her like spilled paint. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sheikh Nasser, confirmation of her first-class flight details, along with a photo of her new studio space in Dubai, windows facing the desert sunset she'd so often painted without seeing. The future gleamed as bright as the promises that would lead to her death. Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri, reviewing the case months later, would note the precision with which Sheikh Nasser had orchestrated every detail of Chloe's seduction. He didn't just offer her success, the detective observed. He offered her a fantasy of herself. By the time she realized the fantasy was a cage, it would be too late. In exactly 4 months, Chloe's body would be found in the Arabian desert, surrounded by the shattered pieces of her final masterpiece, a painting that would expose secrets worth killing for. But that morning, standing in her empty studio, Chloe Harper saw only possibility stretching before her like a blank canvas, unaware that every brushstroke was leading her closer to her fate. The lights of Dubai sparkled below like scattered diamonds as Chloe's plane descended through the desert night. Sheikh Nasser had sent his private jet to Los Angeles, making even the journey feel like stepping into a fairy tale. Now, pressing her face to the window, she could hardly believe the glittering skyline was real. The Burj Khalifa pierced the darkness like a golden sword, promising everything she'd ever dreamed of. Sheikh Nasser waited on the private airstrip, cutting an imposing figure in his traditional white kandura. The desert wind rippled the fabric as he stepped forward to greet her, his dark eyes warming with something that made her heart race. "Welcome to your new kingdom," he murmured, kissing her hand with just enough propriety to satisfy the watching staff. Within moments, she was whisked into a waiting Rolls-Royce Phantom, its interior somehow even more luxurious than the private jet. Her new apartment occupied half a floor of the Burj Khalifa, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view that made her gasp. The furniture was all cream and gold, fresh flowers in every room, and an entire wall of her new bedroom was dedicated to built-in closets. "Your new wardrobe," Sheikh Nasser explained as staff began opening the doors, revealing designer pieces in every color. A proper artist needs a proper image. The first week passed in a blur of luxury. Every morning brought new gifts, designer dresses, jewelry, art supplies from Paris. Her new studio occupied the penthouse of a nearby building, its windows offering the same desert sunset she'd painted from imagination in Los Angeles. Sheikh Nasser visited daily, sometimes bringing lunch from exclusive restaurants, other times simply watching her paint. "You're even more beautiful when you create," he would say, his eyes following her movements with an intensity that both thrilled and unsettled her. It was during one of these studio visits that she first noticed his controlling nature. She'd mentioned meeting some other artists for dinner, and his face darkened almost imperceptibly. "You don't need to associate with struggling artists anymore, Habibi," he said softly, running his fingers along her arm. "You're above that now." The dinner invitation mysteriously disappeared from her email later that day. The real wake-up call came 3 weeks into her Dubai dream, when she literally ran into Amira, Sheikh Nasser's third wife, at the Dubai Mall. Amira was younger than Chloe had expected, perhaps 35, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't quite reach them. "So," she said in perfect English, "you're the new artist," his patronizing. The pause spoke volumes. "I've seen your work," Amira continued, examining her manicured nails. "You have talent. But talent isn't why he chose you." Before Chloe could respond, Amira's voice dropped to a whisper. "Being his favorite is like being the brightest star in the sky. You shine so bright you don't notice you're burning up." That evening, Sheikh Nasser arrived at her apartment unannounced, his usual calm demeanor slightly strained. "I heard about your encounter with Amira," he said, pouring them both crystal glasses of wine she wasn't supposed to have in Dubai. "You must understand, Habibi, my wives are traditional. They don't understand our connection, the way art brings souls together," and Chloe let herself believe him. Her first Dubai exhibition opened with the kind of fanfare usually reserved for established artists. The gallery was packed with the city's elite, women dripping in diamonds, men in pristine kanduras or bespoke suits. Sheikh Nasser stayed by her side all evening, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back as he introduced her to collectors and critics. Her paintings, massive canvases exploring themes of transformation and desire, sold for prices that made her dizzy. "You see," he whispered in her ear as another red dot appeared beside a painting. "This is where you belong. In my world, at my side." The champagne bubbled through her veins like liquid gold, making everything sparkle. If she noticed how his security detail subtly kept certain people from approaching her, she chose to ignore it. The success brought more gifts, more attention, and more invisible bars. Sheikh Nasser's visits became longer, his questions about her daily activities more detailed. A driver was assigned to her for security, though she quickly realized he reported her every movement. Her phone began having technical issues that required it to be replaced with a new one. One she suspected was monitored. Liam's messages became increasingly difficult to receive. "The connection here can be unreliable," Sheikh Nasser explained when she mentioned it. "Besides, you should focus on your new life, not old attachments." His tone was gentle but firm, like everything about him. Each time she tried to assert her independence, he would shower her with more affection, more gifts, more opportunities, until she felt guilty for doubting him. The other wives remained shadowy figures in her new life, glimpsed occasionally at social functions but never approachable. Only Amira seemed to seek her out, appearing unexpectedly in places Chloe frequented. Their conversations were brief but loaded with hidden meanings. "He had another favorite before you," Amira mentioned casually during one encounter. "A dancer from Paris. No one knows what happened to her." As autumn approached, Chloe's work began to change. Her once vibrant colors grew darker, her subjects more confined. A art critic noted that her latest pieces seemed to capture the beautiful tragedy of gilded cages, a comment that visibly displeased Sheikh Nasser. That night, he suggested she take a break from painting to focus on their relationship. "Art should come from joy, Habibi," he said, sliding a diamond bracelet onto her wrist. "Let me give you more joy to paint." Her days fell into a routine of carefully monitored luxury. Mornings in her studio, though increasingly Sheikh Nasser would arrange meetings or social obligations that took her away from her work. Afternoons shopping in the Dubai Mall, always accompanied by her driver guard. Evenings at exclusive restaurants or private parties, Sheikh Nasser's arm around her waist like a velvet chain. Sarah Chen's email from Los Angeles arrived like a splash of cold water. "Your style is changing, Chloe. And not in a good way. It's losing its fire. Call me." Before she could reply, her internet connection mysteriously failed. When it returned hours later, the email was gone. The breaking point came at a private dinner in Sheikh Nasser's palace. Surrounded by priceless artworks and glittering chandeliers, Chloe mentioned wanting to visit an artist friend's exhibition in Abu Dhabi. The silence that followed was deafening. "My love," Sheikh Nasser said finally, his voice soft but cold, "I don't think that would be appropriate. People might get the wrong idea about our relationship." "What exactly is our relationship?" The words escaped before she could stop them. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. "You are my muse, my artist, my golden bird," he said, reaching for her hand across the table. "Why would you want to fly anywhere else when you have everything here?" The words were loving. The grip on her hand was not. That night, alone in her beautiful prison high above Dubai, Chloe finally read through all of Liam's blocked messages. They painted a picture she'd been trying not to see. Concerns about her changed personality, links to articles about Sheikh Nasser's business dealings, questions about her increasingly supervised life. The last message was simple. "If you need help, just say the word." Standing at her window, watching the city lights blur through tears, Chloe realized she'd traded one kind of cage for another. Her phone buzzed, Sheikh Nasser reminding her about tomorrow's charity gala, where she would smile and play her part while his security team watched her every move. On her easel, a half-finished painting showed a woman dissolving into golden chains, her face a mask of beautiful despair. She pulled out her sketchbook, the only thing from her old life she'd managed to keep private, and began to draw what she'd seen in Sheikh Nasser's private office earlier that week. Documents she wasn't supposed to notice, names and numbers that didn't add up. Art had always been her way of telling the truth. Now it might be her only way out. But as she would soon discover, in Dubai's glittering world of wealth and power, even the truth comes with a price tag. And some prices are paid in blood. The passion between Chloe and Sheikh Nasser had grown more intense as autumn painted Dubai's sunsets in deeper golds. Their stolen moments in her studio had become more frequent, more desperate, his visits now often ending with paint-stained sheets and whispered promises. Yet even as his touch grew more possessive, Chloe couldn't ignore the tightening of invisible chains around her gilded life. "You are mine, my artist, my muse, my golden treasure." Each endearment felt more like a brand than a caress. The first real restriction came wrapped in concern. "The streets aren't safe for someone as precious as you," Sheikh Nasser murmured one morning, his body still warm against hers in the tangled sheets. Her driver would now accompany her everywhere, no exceptions. The next day, she noticed a second car following them to her studio, unmarked, windows tinted black as the desert night. Their passion played out against a backdrop of increasing control. Every intimate moment preceded or followed by subtle interrogation about her contacts, her calls, her emails. Sheikh Nasser's jealousy extended beyond other men to encompass any relationship he couldn't monitor. During one particularly heated encounter in her studio, Chloe caught sight of something unusual reflected in the window, a small blinking light in the corner. Later investigation revealed cameras installed throughout her space, disguised as security measures. The discovery sent ice through her veins even as Sheikh Nasser's touch burned on her skin. The financial irregularities she discovered seemed almost accidental at first. Working late one night, waiting for Sheikh Nasser's promised visit, Chloe noticed discrepancies in the gallery's sales records. Paintings sold for one price officially, another price documented in private ledgers she wasn't supposed to see. The amounts involved made her head spin, millions flowing through art purchases that seemed designed to obscure rather than illuminate. Their confrontation about the cameras erupted into something else entirely. "You think I don't know about your little investigations?" Sheikh Nasser's voice remained soft, but his grip on her wrist tightened. "Everything you are here, everything you have, it's because of me. Don't forget that. Habibi." Amira's appearance at the studio the next day was unexpected. Sheikh Nasser's third wife moved through the space like a ghost, examining Chloe's newest works with knowing eyes. "You're painting your own prison now," she observed, gesturing to a canvas where golden chains formed abstract patterns. "But you're not the first bird he's caged. Just the first who might be strong enough to break free." The surveillance increased after Chloe's attempted contact with Liam. A simple email, "Need to talk," never reached its destination. But within hours Sheikh Nasser appeared at her door, his calm facade barely masking his rage. Their argument ended like so many others, with passion overwhelming reason, his possessiveness expressing itself in marks she would have to cover with makeup the next day. "Why did you try to contact him?" Sheikh Nasser demanded later, watching her dress with hooded eyes. "Am I not enough? Do I not give you everything?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Or do you need another demonstration of what you mean to me?" The threat and promise in his voice made her shiver. The secret meetings with art dealers hadn't been planned. One of them approached her at an exhibition, speaking quickly while pretending to admire a painting. "We know what's happening with the sales," he muttered. "You're not the only artist being used this way." Before he could say more, Sheikh Nasser's security detail materialized, smoothly separating them. That night, Sheikh Nasser was trying to erase any thoughts of escape from her mind. "No one will ever love you like I do," he growled, pinning her against the studio wall. "No one will ever understand you, support you, protect you like I do." Amira's support came in subtle ways. A dropped keycard that gave Chloe access to private offices, an accidentally mentioned password, casual comments about Sheikh Nasser's schedule that allowed Chloe precious moments of unsupervised investigation. "He underestimates us," Amira said during one brief encounter. "Women, artists, wives. That will be his downfall." The evidence mounted in her private sketchbook, numbers, names, dates, all hidden within seemingly innocent sketches. Art sales masking money movements, galleries functioning as fronts for something much darker. Sheikh Nasser's empire was built on shifting sands of deception, and Chloe had unknowingly become part of its foundation. Their final confrontation exploded after Chloe discovered her passport missing. She found Sheikh Nasser in her studio, examining her latest work, a massive canvas depicting a woman drowning in gold. "Looking for something, Habibi?" he asked, not turning around. The passport lay on the table beside him, a silent threat. "When did love become ownership?" she demanded. His laugh was soft, dangerous. "They were always the same thing, my dear. You just didn't want to see it." He moved toward her with the fluid grace that had first captivated her. "Everything I do is for us. Every restriction, every rule. They're all to protect what we have." The passion that followed was violent, desperate, both of them aware it marked a point of no return. Afterward, watching him dress with practiced efficiency, Chloe realized she had never really known the man behind the facade. "You'll never leave me," Sheikh Nasser said quietly, adjusting his cuffs. "Not just because I won't allow it, but because deep down, you don't want to. The cage might be golden, Habibi, but you've grown to love its comfort." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Besides, you're in far too deep now to simply walk away." That night, alone in her luxury prison, Chloe finally managed to reach Liam through an encrypted messaging app Amira had secretly installed on her phone. His response was immediate. "I've been waiting. I have contacts in the embassy. Whatever you've found, whatever you need, just say the word. Looking out over the Dubai skyline, Chloe touched the bruises Sheikh Nasser had left on her collarbone, marks of passion, possession, and punishment all in one. The evidence she'd gathered could destroy him, but she knew too well the price of crossing a man like Sheikh Nasser Al-Malik. The question was whether her freedom was worth the cost. In her studio, a new canvas waited, blank, white, full of possibilities and dangers. Like the choice before her. The cameras blinked silently in the corners, recording her every move, while somewhere in the city, Sheikh Nasser watched on his private screens, his love and obsession twisting into something darker with each passing day. The next morning would bring more gifts, more passion, more lies. But for now, Chloe Harper stood at the window of her golden cage, finally ready to spread her wings, even if it meant falling instead of flying. The truth revealed itself in layers, like paint stripped from canvas. Chloe sat in her studio past midnight, surrounded by financial documents she'd secretly photographed from Sheikh Nasser's office during their increasingly intense encounters. Their passion had become her cover. Each time his desire drew him to her studio or her apartment, she used their intimate moments to gather more evidence. The patterns were impossible to ignore. Millions flowing through art sales, paintings sold multiple times to shell companies, prices inflated beyond reason. Earlier that evening, Sheikh Nasser had visited her studio, his desire as overwhelming as ever. "You're working too hard, Habibi," he'd murmured, pulling her away from her canvas. She'd caught sight of papers falling from his briefcase. Later, while he slept, she carefully photographed each page, her hands trembling at the implications. The money trail was elaborate but clear to her artist's eye for pattern. Her own paintings had become part of it, officially sold for hundreds of thousands to legitimate collectors, then resold for millions to companies that existed only on paper. The art world's notorious lack of regulation made it perfect for washing money from Sheikh Nasser's other enterprises whose true nature made her blood run cold. Amira's unexpected visit the next morning brought another piece of the puzzle. "He's getting careless," Sheikh Nasser's third wife said, examining Chloe's latest work, a massive canvas of interlocking golden chains. "The authorities are asking questions about the gallery sales. And you're not the only one keeping records." Her smile held secrets darker than anything Chloe had imagined. That afternoon, while her ever-present security detail waited outside, Chloe finally managed to connect with Liam through an encrypted messaging app. His response to her evidence was immediate. "This is bigger than we thought. The FBI has been investigating similar patterns in Los Angeles. How soon can you get out?" Getting out, Chloe was learning, wouldn't be simple. Sheikh Nasser's control had tightened like a noose. Her phone calls were monitored, her email screened, her movements tracked. Even her art supplies were now ordered through his staff, a way to ensure she didn't slip messages into delivery orders. The evidence kept mounting. During one passionate encounter in Sheikh Nasser's private office, while his hands roamed her body with practiced possession, Chloe caught glimpse of a document that made her heart stop. A list of names, artists, dealers, gallery owners, with dates beside them. Some names were crossed out. With growing horror, she realized she recognized some of them as people who had disappeared from the art world without explanation. Sheikh Nasser's business troubles surfaced in whispers and fragments. At a gallery opening, Chloe overheard heated phone conversations in Arabic, catching enough words to understand something was wrong. His visits became more frequent, more intense, his passion tinged with a desperate edge she hadn't felt before. "No one understands what we have," he told her one night, his grip on her wrist tight enough to bruise. "They want to destroy us, but I won't let them. You're mine, Habibi. Forever." Amira's agenda revealed itself gradually. "I've been gathering evidence for years," she confessed during a carefully orchestrated, chance, meeting at the Dubai Mall. "Bank records, shipping manifests, gallery sales. But I needed someone on the inside of the art world to make the connection. Someone like you." Her smile was razor-sharp. "He chose you for your talent, but I chose you for your intelligence." The threats began subtly. A painting slashed in her studio. A brake line mysteriously damaged on her car. Notes left on her pillow when no one should have been able to enter her apartment. Some secrets are worth dying for. One read, the handwriting unfamiliar. Sheikh Nasser's reaction to the business troubles manifested in increasing control. You'll move into the palace, he announced one evening, his tone brooking no argument. It's safer there. I need to know you're protected. The word, protected, sounded remarkably like imprisoned. Their confrontation that night was explosive. I am not your possession, Chloe had shouted, only to find herself pushed against the wall. Sheikh Nasser's body pinning her there with familiar intensity. Everything you are here exists because of me, he growled. Your art, your success, your very presence in Dubai. It's all mine. The worst part was the heat that still flooded her body at his touch, even as her mind screamed for escape. Planning her escape became an art form in itself. Each piece had to be carefully orchestrated, like elements in a composition. Liam provided contact information for FBI agents. Amira supplied building access codes and security schedules. Chloe herself developed a system of hiding evidence in her artwork, documents photographed, encrypted, and hidden within digital images of her paintings. The pressure built like layers of paint. Sheikh Nasser's empire began showing cracks, small at first, then widening. Art dealers backed away from deals. Banks asked uncomfortable questions. His visits to Chloe became more frequent, more volatile, swinging between passionate declarations of love and veiled threats. You're different lately, Habibi, he observed one evening, watching her paint with those predator's eyes. Distracted. Distant. I don't like it. His hands slid around her waist, both loving and threatening. Perhaps you need a reminder of everything I can give you, and everything I can take away. That night marked a turning point. As Sheikh Nasser slept beside her, Chloe silently photographed a fresh batch of documents from his briefcase, records of art sales that matched dates and locations of other criminal activities. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture of corruption that stretched from Dubai to Los Angeles and beyond. Amira's warning came the next day, his planning to move you to a private compound outside the city. Once you're there, you'll never escape. Her eyes held a mixture of concern and calculation. Whatever you're planning, do it soon. The walls are closing in. The final piece of evidence arrived unexpectedly. During another passionate encounter in Sheikh Nasser's office, as his lips traced patterns on her skin, Chloe spotted a familiar name in an open file. The missing Parisian dancer Amira had mentioned months ago. The report was brief, clinical, and chilling in its implications. That night, back in her apartment, Chloe made the final preparations. Her most damning evidence was hidden within high-resolution images of her artwork, uploaded to secure servers. Physical documents were photographed and encrypted. A USB drive containing everything was disguised as a piece of jewelry. Sheikh Nasser's last visit before everything unraveled was filled with an intensity that frightened her. I can feel you pulling away, he whispered against her skin. But remember this, you're part of this now. Everything you've touched, every painting you've sold, every document you've signed, it all connects you to me. His words were a prophecy and a curse. As Chloe looked out over the Dubai skyline that night, she understood the true price of her golden cage. The evidence she'd gathered could destroy Sheikh Nasser's empire, but it could also implicate her. Every luxury she'd accepted, every painting she'd sold, all of it could be used against her. The next morning, she would set her escape plan in motion. But for now, she stood at her window, watching the city lights blur below, remembering the passion that had led her here and the lies that would force her to leave. In her studio, a new painting stood unfinished. A woman emerging from chains, her face both fearful and determined. It would be her last work in Dubai, a final act of defiance against the man who had tried to own her soul. Little did she know, both Sheikh Nasser and Amira were already several moves ahead in a game she didn't fully understand. The web of lies was about to pull tight, and Chloe Harper was caught at its center, where love, art, and betrayal danced a deadly waltz in the desert night. The night Chloe chose for her escape was moonless, Dubai's lights glittering like fallen stars against the desert darkness. She had planned everything meticulously, the security shift changes, the gaps in camera coverage, the precise timing needed to reach the embassy before anyone realized she was gone. The flash drive containing all her evidence hung around her neck, disguised as an expensive pendant, another gift from the man she was trying to flee. Her hands trembled as she packed a small bag, including only essentials and the sketchbook containing her coded notes. Sheikh Nasser had visited earlier that evening, their encounter particularly intense. "Something feels different about you, Habibi," he'd murmured against her neck, his fingers leaving possessive marks on her skin. She'd forced herself to respond with practiced passion, knowing it might be their last time together. The first sign that her plan had unraveled came at midnight. Her private elevator, which should have been accessible with the code Amira provided, remained locked. Text messages to her supposed escape contacts went unanswered. When she tried the emergency stairs, she found two of Sheikh Nasser's security men, coincidentally, patrolling the corridor. Amira appeared at her door an hour later, her usual composure replaced by urgent intensity. "You didn't really think I was helping you, did you?" Her laugh was soft, dangerous. "Everything you've gathered, every piece of evidence, it was all part of the plan. We needed to know exactly what you knew, what you'd discovered." The betrayal hit Chloe like a physical blow. "You set me up from the beginning." "Not entirely." Amira's smile was almost sympathetic. "The attraction between you and Nasser was real, more real than he expected. That's what made you dangerous. He started taking risks, leaving things where you could find them. We had to know how much you'd seen." While they talked, Chloe had been slowly moving toward her studio. If she could just reach her latest painting, the one with the hidden compartment containing a second copy of all her evidence. Sheikh Nasser's arrival shattered any hope of escape. He filled the doorway like a storm cloud, his usual elegant composure stripped away to reveal something darker. "Did you think I wouldn't know?" His voice was soft, terrifying. "Every message to Liam, every document you photographed, every plan you made, I saw it all." The violence, when it came, was explosive. Sheikh Nasser's hand shot out, catching her throat, pushing her against the wall. "I gave you everything," he snarled. "Made you successful, made you famous, made you mine." His grip tightened. "And this is how you repay me." Chloe fought back with desperate strength, her nails leaving bloody tracks down his face. The struggle sent them crashing into her paintings, canvases falling like dominoes. Somewhere in the chaos, she managed to send a pre-programmed SOS to Liam with her location. Amira watched the scene with calculated interest, only intervening when Sheikh Nasser's rage threatened to go too far. "We need her alive," she reminded him sharply. "At least until we know where she's hidden everything." The next hours passed in a blur of fear and pain. Sheikh Nasser's security team searched her apartment methodically, tearing through canvases, ripping apart her carefully constructed life. Through it all, she kept silent, knowing her evidence was already safely transferred to multiple secure locations. "Tell me who else knows," Sheikh Nasser demanded, his face inches from hers. When she remained silent, his hand struck her face with practiced precision. "You think your American boyfriend can help you? By the time anyone realizes you're missing, there won't be anything left to find." The police arrival was unexpected, responding to a noise complaint from a neighbor. Sheikh Nasser switched seamlessly into the concerned lover role, explaining that his emotional artist girlfriend was having a breakdown, destroying her own work. The officers, clearly recognizing him, accepted his explanation without question. After they left, Sheikh Nasser's rage took on a colder edge. "You forced my hand, Habibi," he said softly, pulling out his phone. "Now we do this another way." The call he made was brief, in Arabic, but Chloe caught enough to understand her fate was being decided. She managed one last call to Los Angeles, using a moment's distraction when one of Sheikh Nasser's men discovered her hidden phone. "Liam," she whispered, "if anything happens to me, everything's in the paintings. The real ones, not the copies. Look closer." The line went dead as the phone was ripped from her hand. The last thing Chloe clearly remembered was being forced into a black SUV, Amira's words following her into the darkness. "It's nothing personal, my dear. Just business. And in Dubai, business is everything." Hours later, Her abandoned Range Rover would be found in the desert, her phone wiped clean beside it. Her last message to Liam would trigger an international investigation that would eventually expose Sheikh Nasser's empire. But too late to save the woman who had dared to love and betray one of Dubai's most dangerous men. In her studio, her final painting remained unfinished. A woman emerging from golden chains, her face caught between fear and defiance. Hidden within the layers of paint, invisible to the naked eye, was the evidence that would eventually bring down an empire. But Chloe Harper would never see her last masterpiece displayed. The desert holds many secrets, and some forms of art are written in blood. Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri, assigned to the case months later, would find poetry in the symmetry. An artist who came to Dubai chasing dreams of gold, only to disappear into the golden sands. But for Chloe Harper, the poetry ended the moment she realized her passionate affair had been just another painting, beautiful on the surface, but concealing darkness underneath. In the end, she had escaped her golden cage, but freedom came at the ultimate price. Detective Saeed Al-Mansouri stood in the desert dawn, watching forensics teams work around a disturbing discovery. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sand where a jogger had stumbled upon something partially buried. Chloe Harper's distinctive Louboutin heel protruding from the dunes, a macabre marker leading to darker revelations below. The body was preserved by the desert, Dr. Fatima Rahman, chief medical examiner, explained as they uncovered Chloe's remains. Strangulation marks on the neck, defensive wounds on the arms, traces of gold paint on her hands. She fought back. The last detail made the detective pause. It would prove crucial later. Liam Crawford arrived in Dubai like a storm, demanding answers within hours of the body's discovery. His gaunt face and haunted eyes spoke of months spent searching, following leads, pressuring authorities. She knew this might happen, he told Detective Al-Mansouri during their first interview. That last call. She was trying to tell me something about her paintings. The investigation initially faced resistance. Sheikh Nasser's influence ran deep, and the first official theory suggested a tragic accident. A young artist lost in the desert, perhaps disoriented after drinking. But Liam's presence drew media attention, particularly when he revealed Chloe's last message about the paintings. Mr. Crawford, Al-Mansouri said during a late-night interview, "Tell me about these paintings. Why would she mention them in her final moments?" Liam's response sparked the first breakthrough. Chloe had a technique she developed in art school, hiding images within images, using specialized pigments that only showed under certain lights. She called it her secret language. The forensics team descended on Chloe's studio, armed with ultraviolet lights and scanning equipment. What they found hidden in her canvases stunned even the veteran investigators. Detailed financial records, transaction logs, names, dates, all concealed within layers of paint, invisible to the naked eye but damning in their clarity. The media circus erupted when the first evidence leaked. American artist murdered. Dubai's dark art scandal screamed international headlines. CNN ran special reports on art-based money laundering. The BBC dispatched investigators to track the money trail across Europe and Asia. Sheikh Nasser's first public appearance after the discovery showed cracks in his carefully maintained facade. Ms. Harper was a troubled young woman, he told reporters, his voice steady but his hands betraying subtle tremors. Her accusations are the products of an artistic mind prone to fantasy. But the evidence in Chloe's paintings proved otherwise. Each canvas told part of a larger story, a complex web of financial crimes using art sales to launder billions. Detective Al-Mansouri's team matched painting sales with international transfers, shell companies, and suspicious deaths stretching back years. Amira's testimony changed everything. Sheikh Nasser's third wife appeared at the police station unannounced, her designer abaya concealing a thumb drive of additional evidence. "I used Chloe," she admitted coldly. "We all did. But her death wasn't part of the plan." He lost control when she threatened to expose everything. International pressure mounted as the investigation expanded. Interpol linked the Dubai art scheme to criminal organizations worldwide. The FBI unveiled parallel investigations into gallery sales in Los Angeles, New York, and London. Each revelation added pressure on Dubai's authorities to act, despite Sheikh Nasser's influence. The Financial Crimes Unit uncovered staggering figures. Over 5 years, more than $3 billion had been laundered through art sales, with Chloe's paintings playing a crucial role in the final months. Her signature on gallery documents provided a paper trail that couldn't be erased. She documented everything, Detective Al-Mansouri explained to a joint task force. But instead of keeping files that could be discovered, she hid the evidence in plain sight, in the very paintings that were being used to launder money. Liam spent days in Chloe's studio with investigators, helping decode her artistic encryption. Each painting examined under specialized lights revealed new information. The final piece, left unfinished on her easel, proved most damning, containing detailed records of Sheikh Nasser's entire operation. The investigation faced constant interference. Key witnesses disappeared or changed their statements. Evidence vanished from secure locations. But Chloe's paintings couldn't be silenced. Their secrets were literally painted into history. Amira's testimony before the federal prosecutor was devastating. She detailed years of systematic fraud, artwork used to clean money from arms deals and drug trafficking. Chloe discovered too much, she explained. She began encoding evidence into her work, knowing it was her only insurance policy. The international art world reeled as the scandal unfolded. Major galleries faced scrutiny over their sales practices. Collectors scrambled to verify the legitimacy of their purchases. Chloe Harper became a symbol of ART's dark underbelly and the price of exposing it. Sheikh Nasser's empire began to crumble under the weight of evidence. Banking records confirmed the patterns Chloe had documented in her paintings. Former employees came forward with collaborating testimony. Each day brought new revelations, new connections, new proof of corruption. She built a case that would outlive her, Detective Al-Mansouri noted in his final report. Every painting was both evidence and testimony, designed to speak truth even after she couldn't. The breakthrough in the murder investigation came from an unexpected source, trace evidence of the distinctive gold paint found on Chloe's hands. Analysis matched it to a specific batch used in her final painting, found also on clothing buried deep in Sheikh Nasser's private office. Pressure from the U.S. State Department intensified as details of Chloe's death emerged. Diplomatic cables demanded action. International arrest warrants were prepared. Dubai's authorities faced a choice between protecting one of their own and maintaining their reputation as a safe, modern business hub. In the end, it was the art that spoke loudest. A special exhibition of Chloe's work, organized by international investigators, displayed her paintings under the specialized lights that revealed their hidden evidence. The world watched as each canvas told its story of corruption, greed, and ultimately murder. Liam stood in that exhibition, surrounded by Chloe's final works, her coded testimony now visible for all to see. She knew the risks, he told Detective Al-Mansouri. But she believed art should reveal truth, no matter the cost. The investigation concluded with unprecedented cooperation between international agencies. Sheikh Nasser's art laundering network had touched galleries and collectors worldwide, each transaction now scrutinized through the lens of Chloe's evidence. As arrest warrants were finally issued, Detective Al-Mansouri made one final visit to the desert site where Chloe was found. The golden sunset painted the dunes in colors reminiscent of her work, beauty masking danger, truth hidden beneath layers of deception. The case would change Dubai's art scene forever, introducing strict regulations and oversight. But for those who knew Chloe Harper, her real legacy was simpler. An artist who used her talent not just to create beauty, but to expose truth, even at the cost of her life. The truth about Amira Al-Malik unfolded like a carefully orchestrated performance. While Dubai police prepared to arrest Sheikh Nasser, Detective Al-Mansouri discovered encrypted files on Chloe's cloud drive that revealed an even darker twist. Amira hadn't just been gathering evidence, she had orchestrated Chloe's entry into their world, selecting her specifically for her combination of talent and vulnerability. "I chose her from hundreds of artists," Amira confessed during her final interrogation, her composure finally cracking. Young, ambitious, talented enough to attract Nasser's attention, naive enough to be manipulated. "I needed someone who could document everything through art, someone whose work was worth millions." The perfect trap. Sheikh Nasser's arrest played out on international television. Anti-terrorism units surrounded his palace at dawn, the same golden desert sunrise that had once inspired Chloe's paintings now illuminating his fall. He remained elegant even in handcuffs, his only visible reaction a slight tremor in his hands when officers mentioned finding gold paint on his discarded clothes. "You think you've won?" he told Detective Al-Mansouri during processing. "But empires don't fall simply because you arrest one man." Hours later, his words proved prophetic as investigators discovered the true scope of the operation. Hundreds of compromised galleries, thousands of laundered transactions, a network spanning 5 continents. The international investigation revealed staggering figures. Over $5 billion laundered through art sales globally, with Dubai serving as the central hub. Chloe's paintings had been crucial, their soaring prices raising red flags that finally caught authorities' attention. Each canvas sold had moved millions in illegal funds, while secretly documenting the very transactions that would expose the scheme. Liam found bitter vindication in the revelations. "She became the very evidence she was gathering," he told reporters. "Every brushstroke, every color choice. She turned her art into a weapon against corruption, knowing it would probably kill her." The reform of Dubai's art world was swift and comprehensive. New regulations required detailed provenance for all sales above $50,000. Digital tracking systems monitored ownership transfers. Independent auditors reviewed gallery transactions. The very system Sheikh Nasser had exploited was dismantled and rebuilt. Expatriate artists in Dubai faced a reckoning of their own. Many discovered their work had been used in similar schemes without their knowledge. Gallery owners found themselves under scrutiny, forced to prove legitimate sources for their funds. The gilded dream of easy success in the Emirates tarnished, replaced by harder truths about the price of ambition. Chloe changed everything, Sarah Chen reflected during the opening of a memorial exhibition at her Los Angeles gallery. "She showed us that art isn't just about beauty or profit. It's about truth, no matter how dangerous that truth might be." The exhibition of Chloe's final works drew crowds worldwide. Under specialized lights, each painting revealed its hidden evidence. Names, dates, transaction records all embedded in luminescent pigments. But it was the artistry itself that moved viewers most. Beautiful images of golden cages, desert mirages, and women trapped in luxury, each holding deeper meanings now painfully clear. Amira's own arrest came as she attempted to flee to a non-extradition country. The woman who had played both sides found herself trapped by her own machinations. Her detailed testimony, given in exchange for leniency, exposed decades of financial crimes and implicated dozens of prominent figures in Dubai's elite circles. The Chloe Harper Foundation emerged from tragedy, established by Liam using funds from the sale of her final paintings. Its mission: supporting young artists while promoting transparency in the international art market. The foundation also maintained a watchdog role, investigating suspicious art sales and protecting vulnerable artists from exploitation. Dubai's art scene emerged changed but stronger. New galleries opened under strict oversight, committed to legitimate sales and artist protection. The expatriate community, shaken but resilient, developed support networks and safety protocols. Chloe's story became a cautionary tale taught in art schools worldwide, a reminder that success at any cost often demands the highest price. Sheikh Nasser's trial revealed the full extent of his operation. Prosecutors presented evidence spanning 15 years, much of it preserved in Chloe's innovative artistic encryption. The man who had once ruled Dubai's art world sat impassive as years of crimes were laid bare, his only reaction coming when Chloe's final, unfinished painting was displayed in court. She turned his greatest weakness against him, Detective Al-Mansouri noted in his closing report. His passion for art, his need to possess beauty, she used those very things to document his downfall. Even in death, she painted his confession. The international art market underwent systemic changes following the case. New regulations required blockchain tracking of major sales. Artificial intelligence systems monitored price anomalies. The very techniques Chloe had documented became textbook examples of how to spot money laundering through art. 1 year after her death, Chloe's story was far from forgotten. Art students studied her innovative evidence-hiding techniques. Financial investigators examined her methods for documenting crimes through creative coding. Her final works toured museums worldwide, each exhibition revealing new layers of evidence she'd hidden in plain sight. The memorial established at the Dubai Opera housed her last painting, the unfinished piece that had sealed her fate. Under normal light, it showed a woman emerging from golden chains. Under ultraviolet light, it revealed the entire criminal network, every name, every transaction, every secret she'd discovered. Liam ensured her legacy lived on through the Foundation's work. Young artists received scholarships in her name, each recipient learning her story as both inspiration and warning. The Foundation's annual Truth in Art award celebrated works that exposed corruption or championed transparency in the art world. Chloe knew the risks, Liam said at the award's first ceremony, but she believed art should serve truth above all. She turned her talent into testimony, her creativity into evidence. She painted her own story knowing it would be her last, but ensuring it would outlive her. Detective Al-Mansouri kept a small print of one of her works in his office, a desert sunrise painted in her distinctive style. Under ultraviolet light, it revealed a simple message: some truths are worth dying for. Dubai's art world would never be the same. The glittering facade had cracked, revealing darker truths beneath, but from those shadows emerged something stronger. An industry built on transparency rather than illusion, on truth rather than glamour. Chloe Harper's final masterpiece wasn't a painting, but a complete transformation of the system that had claimed her life. In the end, her art spoke louder than any testimony, reached further than any investigation. Each canvas told a story of corruption exposed through creativity, of truth revealed through beauty. She had turned her golden cage into a gallery of evidence, her talent into testimony, her death into a catalyst for change. The desert sunset still painted Dubai's towers in shades of gold, but now those colors carried new meaning, a reminder that even the most beautiful facades can hide the darkest truths, and that art, in its purest form, serves justice as much as beauty.